Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us this evening and welcome to our webinar regarding the Pony Club members insurance we'll be holding with Howden this evening. Joining us tonight, we've got Joe Harrow, who's the head of commercial marketing at the Pony Club. Myself, Zoe, I'm the lead marketing officer at the Pony Club, and delivering the presentation this evening will be Catherine Morgan from Howden. So I hope you've got all of your questions and have brought in a list of bits and pieces you want to find out from this evening ready to go with you today. The chat that you can find in the bottom of your screen is moderated. So anything that you will pop through into there, we will see it all, but it might not all end up in the public chat, depending on how we need to answer the question. If you do have a question, please, when you type it into the chat, would you end the sentence with a question mark, and then it'll automatically be filtered for us so that we can pick out the information much easier and get an answer back to you and get it presented on the screen. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Catherine to present to you. And as I say, at the end of the session, we will have a Q&A session to answer any last questions that you do have. Thank you. Over to you, Catherine.
Great, thanks, Zoe. Well, welcome everybody. I hope that tonight I can, just give you an overview of the Pony Club members insurance. It's a really, really important benefit of Pony Club membership, and I think it's so important that parents and members understand what it is that they're covered for. So, just a bit about me. So I work for Howden Insurance Brokers. Howden are a large global insurance broker, but with very distinct specialisms. So I head up the equine team. So we do a lot of commercial insurance. So whether that's associations like the Pony Club, British Eventing, Riding for the Disabled, all the way down to riding schools, trekking centres, freelance instructors, stud yards, you name it. That's what we do. My background, I've been in insurance for too long, over 20 years, just doing equestrian insurance. And, before that, back in the day, I was a proud member of the Heart of England Pony Club, and then the North Warwickshire Pony Club. And my daughter is also a member of the East Essex. So, I've got that experience in insurance, but also I do understand what the Pony Club is all about, which is very important when you're trying to place this sort of policy. So just in terms of what we're going to go through tonight. So first of all, we'll talk about what is third-party liability, which is the main insurance benefit that you get as a member of the Pony Club. The difference between third-party liability and personal accident insurance, which is something that frequently gets confused. We'll then go through a summary of the policy cover, differences in insurance cover for different membership categories. We'll talk a bit about the policy extensions, a bit about claims. I've put in some sort of frequent queries that we get from members and parents, but at the end there will be time to answer any additional questions that you've got. So if you do have a question, do type it in during the presentation, and then hopefully I'll get to answer as many of those as possible at the end. We will sort of quickly touch on other insurance at the end that you might look at buying for your youngsters, and then where to find additional information. So I'm hoping that should all take about 40 minutes, and then 20 minutes for what I hope is some questions from everybody. So the Pony Club policy, all members have third-party liability insurance. So to start at the beginning, and I'm really sorry if this is a bit too basic, but it's always best to make sure that we're all on the same page. Third-party liability insurance, it protects the insured person if they are held legally liable for an injury to a third party or damage to property that is owned by a third party. So in terms of what is a third party, it's effectively anybody else, that is not connected with you. So it wouldn't cover an injury to your family members or a member of your household. And it also excludes injury to someone in your employment. So if you have a business and that's something entirely separate, employer's liability insurance. So that's effectively what we're covering here. So if you think about it, it's obviously like your car insurance. Obviously, a compulsory motor insurance is third-party liability to cover the damage that you've done to somebody else, effectively. And I cannot stress this enough, liability insurance is absolutely essential for anybody who has regular contact with horses. You know, there are too many things that can go wrong, as I'm sure everybody on this presentation will appreciate. You know, they can bite, they can kick, they can escape, they can run people over. You know, it's and it's a high risk sport, so it's just very, very important. So what is the difference between third-party liability and personal accident? So they genuinely get frequently confused because they both deal with injuries to people. Now, third-party liability insurance, like I say, that's when you are held liable for due to negligence for an injury to somebody else. It doesn't cover any injury to the member themselves. That would be personal accident insurance. And the other key difference between the two is that public liability, there has to be some sort of negligence. In order to be legally liable for it, you know, there has to be some sort of cause, some sort of fault on your behalf that means that you are therefore deemed to be legally liable for it. Whereas personal accident, it's a no fault policy. So effectively, if you fall off, you break your leg, then there might be loss of earnings. In the case of a pony club member, you know, in you know, really severe injury that could lead to, you know, lifelong problems, then if it is covered within the scope of the policy, then you automatically get it. There doesn't have to be any negligence. You know, an accident, any kind of accident would therefore be covered. And therefore, the pony club policy, it provides third-party liability and not personal accident. So if you do need personal accident insurance as a parent or as a member, then you know, you would need to buy separate cover for that. So what do you get as a member of the pony club? You get third-party liability insurance, and it provides protection against legal liability for damages and expenses in respect of accidental bodily injury, accidental damage to property as a result of your use of a horse, ownership of a horse, control of a horse or horse-drawn vehicle, direct participation in horse-related activities, and attendance at any event organised by the pony club. Now, there are different categories of membership. There's 4 different categories of membership in the pony club, and there are some subtle differences which I'll come on to. But effectively, the member is covered for all of their equestrian activities, with a few exceptions that I will come on to. So if they're using a horse, that might be their horse. It might be someone else's horse. They could be riding somebody else's horse and hacking out. And a pony goes and kicks a car or something like that, and the member is held legally liable for the damage, then, you know, it doesn't matter whether they're riding their horse or somebody else's. And that is quite key, because, you know, a lot of policies, so if you have a liability extension on a horse and pony policy, which is where a lot of people are covered, it will only cover that individual horse and people riding that horse. It's not going to cover, you know, other scenarios. It covers ownership of a horse. So it's not just while you're using your horse, while you're out riding. It's certainly not just at pony club activities. It is 24/7. So if you've got a pony in a field and something happens and it breaks through the fence and escapes and causes a horrific car accident or something like that, that is absolutely covered on the pony club policy. Control of a horse, like I say, when you're out riding, and like I say, driving is also covered if we have any budding drivers out there. Direct participation in other horse-related activities. So, you know, whilst it doesn't have to be a pony club event, you can be competing in any other competition, and that's absolutely covered. And attendance at any event organised by the pony club. So even when you're doing triathlon and tetrathlon and things like that, it's not, so at that point, it's not just equestrian activities. In terms of the differences between membership types. I've just sort of put in a bit of a table there. So branch riding members and Centre Plus members have exactly the same cover, and they are covered for all of those things that I have just mentioned. So ownership, use, direct participation at Pony Club events, all of that is covered. A Centre member, they're covered 24/7, but they don't, the policy doesn't cover their ownership of a horse, because a Centre member in general is riding at a riding school. They may occasionally ride a friend's horse, and in those sorts of situations they will be covered. And branch non-riding, so that would be where, you know, you've got a brother or sister who isn't particularly interested in horses, but they like to join in for triathlon and things like that, and they only have cover at Pony Club events only. So if they do ride outside of you know, any events, then they would need some separate liability insurance, or more likely, hopefully, they would just join as a branch riding member, which would make more sense. So that is the difference. One thing about Centre members, if we do have any Centre members on here, Centre members, there is a clause in the policy that says if you are midway through the policy period, which is 1st of July to the 30th of June, if you're midway through that period and you actually buy a horse, then the policy will cover you for ownership of a horse until your next renewal of your Pony Club membership. At that point, you'd be expected to upgrade the membership to either branch riding or Centre Plus. So that's kind of the slight differences, slight nuances between the types. For the rest of this presentation, I will purely talk about effectively branch riding and Centre Plus, just to make it a bit simpler and not have to sort of go through the differences every single time. So branch riding and Centre Plus, they have all of those benefits. Sorry, what I should have said, going back to this slide, the limit of indemnity is extremely high on this policy. So it's actually 30 million. So that would mean that if you had, like I say, this scenario when horse escapes from the field, which does happen, and causes a traffic accident, say there's a multi-car pile-up with multiple people injured, you have got a really high limit of indemnity, which is really important. There is an excess on property damage claims. So property damage only, so nothing on injury. But if you have a property damage claim where, like I say, your horse out hacking, kicks a car, big dent in the door, that sort of thing, you would have to pay the first £250 of that claim. And territorial limits, this is also quite important. So the policy will cover you in the United Kingdom and the Republic of Ireland. So if you are lucky enough to be on a some sort of mounted games competition where you go to Ireland or something like that, then you are covered in the Republic of Ireland. And what I should say, I can't imagine that we've got any Irish members on this, but you never know, might have some Northern Irish members. If you live in the Republic of Ireland, the policy doesn't actually cover you. So if there are any that are very near the border, that's quite important to note as well. The joys of Brexit have made that bit quite difficult, but you are actually covered in the Republic of Ireland. So key exclusions, obviously in all policies there will be some form of exclusion. So like I said earlier, it doesn't cover injury to the member themselves, a member of their family or their household. It doesn't cover damage to property in your care, custody and control. So any sort of damage to your own equipment, but also equipment that you may borrow off somebody, because it's in your control at the time that it's damaged, then that wouldn't be covered. So say you have borrowed a saddle off somebody, you're trying it out, and that your pony falls over and breaks the tree, that would not be covered because the saddle was in your care, custody and control when it happened. It doesn't cover claims due to hire and reward. So anything to do with a commercial operation. We do also have to be a little bit careful. We get a lot of requests for things like, can I take my pony to a fete to do pony rides and things like that. That is not covered as standard, that would come into, sort of effectively it's commercial. Really, something like that, if you desperately wanted to do it, you would have to take out separate insurance, or say to the FAPE, well, if you want me to do this, then you need to cover me for this activity. And then I would strongly recommend at that point that you get that in writing and you see the policy to make sure that you are absolutely covered for something like that. Doesn't cover you for claims arising out of your business or profession. So, if you were doing any freelance coaching for the older members, anything like that, you would need separate insurance. It also doesn't cover horse racing, point-to-point racing, steeplechasing, and team chasing. The only exception to the horse racing exclusion is pony club race days. Obviously, if you are at a pony club training day, pony club race day, then absolutely you are covered for liability then. The other query that we get quite a lot actually on the horse racing point, any Shetland Pony Grand National riders out there, that is still deemed as racing. And there's also a Shetland Pony Performance team that I know we get a lot of queries off. So that is still deemed to be racing and wouldn't be covered. So you would need to source some liability cover elsewhere for that activity if we have got anybody that's doing that. Key conditions. I mean, obviously, this is a summary of the whole policy, but some of the key conditions in here. The policy is one of last resort, and anybody who has, sort of been around horses for a long time, has looked into liability. Most associations, so the BHS, they also obviously have third-party liability as part of their membership. They are all policies of last resort. And what that means is that if there is something more specific, if you have another policy that is more specific and covers the same risk, then it will fall on that policy first. If you have two policies, so say we've got a pony club member who is also a British dressage member, then the likelihood is that in the event of a claim, then the two association policies, which are both policies of last resort, they would actually just pay half each effectively. That's the most likely scenario as to what would happen. The insurers would sort of sort it out in the background and just pay half each. I hear a lot of people talking about, policies of last resort, it's not worth it because, it's it doesn't respond first. With equestrian insurance, the policies of last resort are actually becoming far more a policy of first resort. It used to be a lot of the time people would have insurance on their horse and pony policy, but actually most policies now you get to sort of pick and choose what sorts of covers you have on your horse and pony policy. And if you've got pony club insurance or anything, any other policy of last resort, then the chances are you're saying to them, well, I don't need liability insurance, which is absolutely right. But it just means that there are far more claims coming on these policies of last resort, because also household insurers, where they used to pick up sort of domestic pets and would include equines in that, is not really the case anymore. They've got wise to that and have realised that actually, people should look for that elsewhere. So it's the policy is last resort, but it responds in a huge amount of situations. And even if you did have a separate policy with a lower limit, so say 2 million, which is probably fairly standard for a horse and pony policy, if you had a really awful claim, then the first 2 million might be covered by the horse and pony policy, but then as the pony club is up to 30 million, then the top up would come onto the pony club policy. So they are very, very valuable benefits. The other key condition, you must take reasonable precautions to avoid or minimise injuries to others or damage to third-party property. So effectively, what insurers are saying here is, you can't just, completely disregard, normal, sensible precautions. If they investigated and found that, your pony was separated from a major A road with a piece of electric tape, I think it's fairly foreseeable that something could happen there, and your pony could get out on the road. So do obviously do make all reasonable precautions and make sure that that you're satisfied that to as far as possible you are being safe. The last one that I've put on there is if you cancel your membership of the Pony Club, your insurance will also be cancelled. It is tied into your membership period. So the policy itself runs from July to the end of June, but your insurance will run for your Pony Club membership. So whenever that starts, it just might cover 2 actual policy periods. But if you cancelled your Pony Club membership, then the insurance would stop at exactly the same time. There are some key policy extensions which effectively talk about who else could potentially be covered on the members' policy. So there is an authorised user extension. So if you are lucky enough to have, say, 2 ponies and the member's friend comes to ride one of them, and they go out hacking together, and the horse that the friend is riding kicks a car and the rider is deemed liable, then because they are in the presence of the member, that would be covered. So effectively it covers any person who is riding your horse with in the presence of the member or the member's parent. So that they would be covered, which is good, because obviously if your horse does cause that sort of damage, you want to make sure that whoever is riding it, that is covered. So there was a bit of a debate when this was brought in, which was a couple of years ago, and it's something that the BHS brought in originally, and all of these policies, the insurers are constantly looking and trying to keep things in line. And there was a bit of a debate over, what in the presence means, but effectively it means the member is physically with the third party and they're under their supervision, the member, or like I say, the member's parent as well. And using your horse, that might be leading, riding, competing, all of those things. The member needs to be present, or the member's parent. And I would hope that obviously if the Pony Club member is very young, that it would be the member's parent, and that we're not relying on a 10-year-old to be in charge of everything that's going on. The other extension that is on here is the horse grooms extension. So this would mean that, say you go on holiday and you have a friend look after your horse while you're away. So even though you're not there, that groom will still be covered. So if they're leading the horse from the field, the horse gets away from them, escapes onto the road, all of those sorts of scenarios would be covered. It doesn't cover riding, so because you're not going to be there because you're off sunning yourself on a beach somewhere, so the groom is not covered for riding. Obviously they can ride your horse, there's no problem with that whatsoever, but you'd need to make sure, or I would recommend that you make sure that the groom has their own liability insurance in place. It doesn't cover a professional groom. So this is just in the scenario like I've described, where you've got a friend who's coming in and helping look after the horse for you. But a professional groom, somebody that does that as their sort of main income, is taking a proper wage for this, they would not be covered, because they would expect to have their own commercial insurance in place. So that's generally what is covered on the policy. But what should you do if you do have an accident that might result in a claim? First of all, and you'll know this for everybody that drives, do not admit liability where injury to others or damage to their property is caused. So that's kind of a key one from the insurer's point of view. And it is very difficult in the moment. I think if your horse has kicked a car, but it's down to the insurers to work out whether it was your fault or whether it was the car's fault, or something like that. So do try not to admit liability. Don't enter into any correspondence with a claimant. If you do have a claim and you get either a letter or a text message, if you know the person, that says, I want to make a claim against you for damages or for an injury, then by all means acknowledge that correspondence, but say that you will pass it on to your insurer, and then just make sure that you have contacted us to log the claim. If possible, take contact details and statements from any witnesses to the accident, and if possible, take photos of the site and of any damage caused. That's actually really, really helpful. Like I say, sorry, do acknowledge your correspondence from a third party and just say that you've passed it on to your insurers. The way to actually send a first notification to us at Howden is to complete an accident report form online via the Pony Club Insurance Hub. I hope that everyone is aware that there is a Pony Club Insurance Hub. So there's a website that's hosted by Howden. It's where you can download all of your policy documents. There's all sorts of frequently asked questions on there as well, and there is this accident form to log. When you go on there, there are two different forms. There's a branch form and a members form. Obviously, you as a member would complete the members form. Do cooperate fully with any claims investigation. Liability claims investigations, they do take a bit longer than a sort of standard property. You know, if you had something stolen, you know, and you put in a claim, you can normally expect a fairly quick turnaround. Insurers on a liability claim, there is more investigations that need to take place, because ultimately they need to decide whether you really are liable or actually whether to deny it, because that's actually a key part of you know, what insurers will do for you is pay defence costs. If they think that actually, you know, there's a serious injury to somebody, but they think that actually it is just an accident, it is just a very, very unfortunate thing that has happened, then they will defend you. So they will bear that cost of all the solicitors and everything else. And then obviously do contact us if you have any queries at all. There is a Pony Club email address that goes straight to myself and my team, that's on the last slide. There is also a sort of direct phone number for the Pony Club insurance queries. So we are always around to answer your questions, and we do try and do that as quickly as we possibly can. It's normally turned around within 24 hours in general. So there's lots of ways to contact us. I put in here a few sort of frequently asked questions. So the first one there is regarding the owner of a loan horse. So if you've got a horse on loan, firstly, another question that we get quite frequently is, am I covered for having a loan horse? And the answer is absolutely yes. So if you've got a horse that's under the member's care, custody and control, then yes, it's absolutely covered. So it's in your field, it escapes, that's covered. Is the owner covered? Only if they are riding the horse or you know, sort of mucking out the horse, whatever, under the groom's extension or the authorised user extension. They wouldn't be covered if they go down there, if they go down to the stables while you're not around, they wouldn't be covered. And we strongly recommend that the owner of any horse has public liability insurance in place, even if it is no longer in their care, custody and control. So say they've got one pony, they don't use it anymore, they've loaned it to you, it's now entirely in your care, custody and control. There is a really, really horrible piece of legislation called the Animals Act. And what that piece of legislation means is that the owner of a horse can be held legally liable for that horse, strictly liable, so there doesn't need to be negligence involved. So and this has we've seen a real increase in those types of claims, you know, in the last sort of 5-10 years, and so it is really important. So you know, do recommend to anybody that owns a horse to have their own public liability in place. This is one that we get really, really often. So if your child is going to do work experience at a stud yard or a racing yard or any equestrian establishment, sometimes people are told that they need their own insurance, and we get the question, are they covered on the Pony Club insurance? We've been told we must be insured. And the answer is no. So the Pony Club policy, it covers personal equestrian activities. Like I said earlier, it doesn't cover any kind of business or profession. And any good yard should have their own public liability insurance in place and also employer's liability in place. And I would question any yard that is telling you that you need your own insurance in place, because that would ring alarm bells for me, to say that that they're not actually covered to have work experience people. But if your child is going to a yard, I think it's perfectly reasonable to say, are you fully insured? Are you insured to have work experience placements? So do some due diligence, and if you do have any queries on that, then do let us know, because it is really important that when young people walk into any kind of equestrian establishment, that they are protected by employers' liability and also public liability. We had this query very recently. Had an accident at a Pony Club event and my saddle was damaged. Can I claim the cost to repair it? Like I said earlier, no, that is your saddle. So that sort of property cover is not what is covered under a third-party liability policy. And again, a sort of key one, I'm the parent of a Pony Club member. Am I covered under the Pony Club policy? So in certain situations, you absolutely are. Like I said earlier, under the authorised user extension, there is a limited amount of riding. If you're riding regularly, I cannot stress enough that really you should have your own public liability in place and not rely on someone else's policy. But it will also cover you if your child is too young to be held legally liable. Then that legal liability is likely to transfer to you as the parent. In those situations, you will absolutely be covered by the policy. And again, with regards to ownership, and when I'm talking about ownership, we absolutely appreciate that the legal owner for any Pony Club member under the age of 18, it's very unlikely to be the member themselves that is the legal owner. So even though it's legally owned by the parent, in that situation, if it's a pony that is ridden by the child and you can reasonably prove that that is largely there for the Pony Club members' use, then any claim relating to the ownership of that pony would indemnify you as the parent. But again, if you are a Pony Club mum or dad that only deals with the pony, sort of on the ground, never do any riding, don't really do anything outside of that, then the Pony Club policy will protect you. If you do anything outside of that, if you've got your own horse, if you're regularly riding the pony, if you have sort of mother-daughter share, anything like that, then please do consider getting your own insurance, because you need to be covered. I cannot stress enough. We see all of the bad things that go wrong. And obviously, a liability policy, you hope that you never have to make a claim. And most people don't. The vast majority of people will never have to use this policy. But when it does happen, it's absolutely crucial that you are properly covered. I just sort of popped this slide in towards the end about other insurance. So like I say, obviously the policy doesn't cover personal accident, but I can totally understand that as parents, you would like to make sure that your children are protected if there's a really awful accident. What I would say about personal accident insurance is it's very different from liability, whereby if you have a liability policy, the limit of indemnity, it will be in the millions, whether that's 2 million, 5 million, 10 million, or the Pony Club at 30 million. Personal accident, it's so wide ranging. It might be, 5,000 for permanent disablement, and they are the sort of typical add-on policies that you get. So some associations do have a very small amount of personal accident thrown in. And what I hear is, it's all right, I've got personal accident insurance, I'm covered. But then they have a problem and they haven't really looked into what what they're actually covered for. And then they have a nasty surprise when they find out that they've got £5,000 for permanent disablement only, and actually, you know, they're laid up with a broken leg and they can't work and they haven't got loss of income on there and things like that. So really look for a policy that has you know, decent limits. If the member or if it's a parent looking for personal accident, do make sure that it's got loss of income in there if that is a consideration for you. If you're self-employed, it's really quite important to get that loss of income in there. I have a bit of an issue with rider policies, because quite frequently, if you're it will only cover for equestrian accidents. And my thinking on this is, if you are worried about what happens in the event that there is a permanent disablement or something like that, and you are prepared, you know, and you are making sure that you're covered in those events, then it doesn't matter whether it's a riding accident or whether, you know, whether something happens whilst you're crossing the road. So personally, I would always look for a personal accident policy that covers riding, but that also covers you the rest of the time as well. And like I say, just look at the limits. Are they high enough to offer meaningful assistance? We can do personal accident insurance. So we have a separate team at Howden called Howden Life and Health, and they have some very good options. So you know, do let us know if that's of interest to anybody. Horse and pony, I'm sure everybody sort of understands what that is. So you're covering the death of the horse. Frequently people will want to take these sorts of policies out for vets fees, because, you know, let's face it, vets fees just go up and up and up. So we do have a horse and pony product, and if you are a Pony Club member, or indeed the parent of a Pony Club member, you do get 10% off. So do bear us in mind if you're looking at horse and pony insurance. So where can you find more information? Like I say, we have the Pony Club Insurance Hub. Now the insurance policy actually renewed on the 1st of July. I'm pleased to say that the documents are now updated on the Insurance Hub. So if you want to view the full terms and conditions, obviously we've only run through you know, the sort of main points of the policy today, but if you do want to have a read and have a look through it, it is all there for you to see, along with the frequently asked questions and everything else. If you want to submit any insurance questions, ponyclubinsurance@howdengroup.com, and horse and pony insurance, we have a separate team dealing with horse and pony, and they can be contacted on equine@howdeninsurance.co.uk, or that phone number there, 01743 455 911. So lots of different ways to contact us. On the Insurance Hub, there is also a form which comes through to us, and again, we normally answer those, you know, certainly within 24 hours. So I've rattled through that, and I think I said it was going to take about 40 minutes, and it's now 7:39. So I think I did quite well there. So on that, I'm hoping that that people will have questions, and I'm very happy to answer them.
Thank you, Catherine. That was wonderful, and as you said, it's spot on exactly to time that you said they were going to be. So
always good.
So I definitely have a couple that we've already collected. So if there is any more, please get them type in. We're not in any rush, so I can see if they are coming through, so we can hover while they pop up into the chat. But I've got a couple of questions here already that have come through, and this one's from Jane. She'd ask if we can you confirm that hunting is included within the policy?
Yes, so hunting is included. So if you're out hunting and you know, fall off and the horse escapes and causes an accident, all of those sorts of things. If your horse kicks somebody else's horse, yes, absolutely. Hunting is not an excluded activity.
Thank you. And another one here. It's an example. If your lorry is kicked at a competition, does that mean that the £250 is paid by the claimant?
So if you are being held legally liable for the damage, so your horse has kicked somebody else's lorry, then it is you that would pay the £250. So, you know, if it is found that you're not legally liable, then you wouldn't need to pay the excess. Typically, though, in terms of property damage, it's very difficult. If your horse has kicked someone else's lorry, someone else's car, unless that lorry has sort of tried to drive into you or something like that, then in general, it will be deemed to be your fault, and therefore you would pay that excess of £250.
Thank you. Had another question come through here asking, is the insurance relevant to a centre member?
Yes, I would absolutely say it is relevant to a centre member. So our centre members, so I don't know, what the split is in terms of people on this presentation, but if you are riding at a riding school, then you can, and you're riding at a riding school that is a Pony Club affiliated centre, you can become a centre member. Those centre members are probably just learning to ride. They are at the beginning of their equestrian journey, and they are riding at the riding school. But they may well know people that have horses. Certainly, when I was young, I was riding at a riding school. My friend had a pony, and I would go back down and ride that once a month. And at that point, a centre member would absolutely be covered, which is key. The centre membership, is a lot cheaper, and one of the reasons is that clearly there isn't as much risk exposure for a centre member in terms of equestrian. But is it relevant? Yes, absolutely.
Thank you, Catherine. Thank you for that. If there's any more questions that anybody has, please do feel free to add them in now. As I said, I will be able to see you if you are typing those in, so we can hang around for a moment to make sure that you've got the opportunity to type those out and we can get them answered for you. And Jo, is there any other questions from your end?
No, nothing come through at my side so far, Zoe.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, well, if there is anything that you do think of that comes up that hasn't been covered in the presentation, or it comes to you at a later point in time, please do feel free to contact communications@pcuk.org or contact the Howden email address. That's the ponyclubinsurance@howdengroup.com, and they'll be able to assist you with your queries and come back to you. And it's definitely something that we could look to add in at the end of the video here to assist you going forward. So thank you all for joining us this evening, and thank you, Catherine, for delivering this presentation. It has been really, really helpful to all of us and very insightful, and we look forward to it coming into use for all of our members. It will be able to be found on the website and on our YouTube channel. So as I say, if there's anything that you want to come back to, please do go there first to see if you can find the answers from the presentation. So again, thank you, Catherine, and thank you for joining us. And we'll see you again soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks all. Bye-bye.